welcome to the Yarn Curator Podcast. My name is Naomi, and this is my podcast where I talk about knitting, spinning, fiber, potentially some gardening and cooking, or maybe sewing if I choose to dabble in those. So thank you to everyone who recently subscribed. Thank you so much. I truly do appreciate it. If you're a new viewer, welcome. So yeah, let's dive right in. Today I'm going to talk about the trip I took back in March to Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I was lucky enough to go with my mom, my sister, and one of my aunts. So it was a really special girls trip, kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity that I am really excited to share with you guys. So we flew out, I believe it was a Wednesday, March 20th, out of Tampa here in Florida. Caught an overnight flight to London, and then had a really long layover at, not Heathrow, we were at London Gatwick was the airport, and so we had probably like a probably closer to like a 7-hour layover there. So we kind of hung out in the airport all day, and then caught a connecting flight up to Edinburgh and landed in the evening. Unfortunately, that meant we missed the first day of the festival. So we didn't actually get to go till the second day of the festival, which was Friday. And I do have to apologize in advance. I did not take that much film footage while we were there. However, I'm going to try and put in the little bit of pictures and footage and stuff as we go. So I hope you guys don't mind that, but I'm going to try and make it as visually diverse as possible for you. So it's a little funny to start. So Zoe, my sister, and myself really wanted to ride the bus to the festival the first day. And I think my mom and my aunt didn't really want to have to worry about that our first day, so they were going to take an Uber. And so Zoe and I, we got ready a little bit faster than them, and so I said, well, since we're going to catch the bus, which probably won't be as fast as an Uber, we'll go ahead and take off before you. So we left probably like 45 minutes before them, and we hopped on the bus, and we're chatting and all of that good stuff, and then we actually caught the bus going in the wrong direction, and so we actually rode to the end of the line by accident, and so so we were sitting there for probably about I'd say about 15-20 minutes, and in that meantime we're chatting, and we're like, do we need to get off? Do we need to catch another bus? If we just sit here, is this one going to take off again? And the one in front of us was the same line that we were on. It was the same number bus and everything, and we debated hopping on that one, and then it took off, and we're like, oh crap, we should have probably hopped on that one. Which it worked out in the end. We just sat on the bus and chit-chatted and all of that good stuff. So we finally made it to the festival, and we were fortunate enough that we were able to purchase our tickets in advance. We were able to get some of the pre-order tickets, so we didn't have to queue, just walked right in the door. And so I have to say, you guys, my one, it's not really a complaint, but critique or overwhelming downside of the festival was it was incredibly crowded. And when we were there on Friday, from what other people have said, it sounds like that was the busiest day of the festival as well. And it was just wall to wall people, and that made it a little bit difficult to really get in the booths and look at the yarn and mull things over. So when we got in, we texted my mom and my aunt, and we're like, hey, we finally made it. They had already been there for like 45 minutes by the time we made it there. And so we kind of did a loop around the facility, checked our bags, checked our coats, and just kind of scoped everything out. So the way the festival is set up was there is the big kind of vending space area, and then there was the marquee, and then an area where Isolde's booth was, and then there was another room with like the wool research station. So it was more rustic, primarily British, Scottish-based farmers and breeders selling their wares there. So that was kind of the general layout. So yeah, we got there, and the first thing we did was go to pick up our pre-orders. So before the festival, you could order some EYF branded specific swag, and so I ordered a couple things. So one was I got a little festival project bag, which I've yet to use because it's a cute little souvenir, but it's got some really cute designs on it that are specific to Edinburgh, like the Scott Monument and the Third Bridge and Edinburgh Castle. So that was really cute. So I went ahead and got that. And then this was the first year they were also doing tea towels. So I picked up one of these for my craft room, and the plan is to hang it on a wall. So that is the tea towel. And then I did also get one of their pins, but that is on my book bag, and my husband's taking a nap in our bedroom, so I'm not going to go wake him up. So yeah, so we kind of walked around. Zoe knew she wanted to get a project bag from Woolly Originals. She makes these really cool machine knit project bags, so we stopped over there because her stuff sells out super fast. And Zoe was able to get one of those, and then we met up with my mom and my aunt and chatted about them with what they did, and then we went back out into the space. So one of the first places we went to was the La Biennale. No, we didn't go there first. We went there later, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go through what we got and the booths that we went to. So one of the first places we did go was Coop Knits, and Coop Knits makes primarily sock yarn, and I knew I wanted to go to the Coop Knits booth because I knew they make really affordable sock yarns. And before the trip I had this grand plan of I was going to buy Coop Knits and I was going to knit the Errol socks, which I'll put a picture of. So I was going to make Errol socks while we were in Scotland with Coop Knits, and then that did not happen. I did make a pair of socks, but I didn't start them till like the day we flew out. So the best laid plans, as they say. So yeah, I got 2 skeins of Coop Knits in the sock Yacht. It is 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. And I got it in this blue, which is the Larimer colorway, and then in this grayish purple, which is the Kunzite colorway. So I will hold this up. Hopefully these are coming through. I'm recording on my phone, as I do with all my podcasts, but instead of using the front-facing camera this time, I'm using the rear-facing camera, so I can't actually see what's going on. So hopefully these comes through. Worst case scenario, I'll be dropping in pictures over what I'm saying. So we went to Coop Knits, and one of the places I wanted to go to first was Spin City, because I have a feeling it was like the Woolly Originals, which is, if you don't get there soon, it kind of sells out of all the popular stuff first. So I knew I wanted to get a bat to spin from Spin City, UK. I absolutely love spinning bats. They're probably one of my favorite fiber preparations. So I hemmed and hawed in her booth over a lot of different options. And I was trying to find something without stellina in it, because I don't particularly like stellina in yarns. I'm just not a shiny person. And pretty much all her stuff has stellina in it. So I ended up going with this very colorful, dark rainbow neon art bat with just absolutely gorgeous colors in it. And so I picked this one over some of her more pastel bats or not quite as vibrant, because I know this will tone down when I spin it, especially if I pre-drop the fiber a lot. It'll really mellow out. So I went ahead and got a bat from Spin City, and I debated getting a braid, but it was still early in the day and I was being conscious of my budget, but oh well. So yeah, so then after that I think we went over to the Lobby and Amy booth, because we both knew we wanted to buy things from LBA, which I'm just going to shorten it to that. So I got a few different things from over there. I've already shown my Elton cardigan on previous episodes, so I got one skein of mohair from there in the Marjorie colorway to go with that project. And I knew I wanted a sweaters quantity from there, and so I kept coming back to this colorway right here, which is La Grande Nuage. So I got 3 skeins of this on their merino super sock base, which is also a 75-25% nylon blend. And this has 425 meters or 467 yards. So it's this really pretty, once again, gray with kind of a purple gray. It just has the most absolutely beautiful speckles of black and electric blue and navy and pink and purple. And I thought I was going to get a different sweaters quantity from, or colorway from Lobby and Amy, but I just kept coming back to this. I just kept picking it up and gravitating towards it, and I find that I tend to wear a lot of gray and black in my everyday wardrobe, so I know whatever I make out of this, I am likely to wear. I've made other things in the past that were a lot flashier, and they just don't get worn. So got my staple, my neutral staple in that, and I hope the speckles are coming through, because it's just gorgeous. And then this one was a little bit of an impulse purchase. I had wanted, before the festival, I really like their Piche Mignon colorway, but they didn't have that there, or it was sold out. So instead I got one skein of Merino Sport, and this is 100% Super Rush Merino, and it's on their sport base. So this has 325 meters or 355 yards. And this is their Peach Pom Pom colorway. So it's a really pretty peach with aqua, pink, purple, yellow, brown speckles. So I'm not sure what I'm going to make out of this. Like I said, it was kind of an impulse purchase, but I absolutely love it. And at the end of the day, if it ends up just being a souvenir skein, that is fine with me as well. So yeah, that was the Lobby and Amy booth. And then next I went over to Hey Mama Wolf, who is a German dyer, and she does primarily natural dyeing. By the time I did get to her booth, a lot of her full skeins were gone. There were just like 1 or 2 of each color left, and so I didn't see anything there with enough quantity in the color that I like to justify buying. So I just kept going to this mini skein set. So I picked this up. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's 5 minis in 4 different colors. So this one's a little bit darker than this one right here. It's more of a brownish red. And this is a more berry, and then into the pinks, and then kind of light purple. So this is her sock yarn, which is 80% wool, 20% ramie. It's a blend of merino and Corriedale. And so it is a total of 382 yards. for this here, and the color for this is also kunzite. I did not plan it with the coop knits, I promise. And so I was chatting with the girl who worked at the booth who was not Hey Mama Wolf, and she said there's something on here that, you know, if you read it you can tell what she used to dye it with. If I had to guess, it would probably be Brazil wood or Kutch, because I've done some natural dyeing in the past and you get this kind of deep reddish brownish purple with the Brazil wood. So that would be my guess as to what she used for these. And this is kind of like that Peach La Bien-Aimée skein. I don't really know what I'm going to do with these. However, it's pretty. I like it. It brings me joy. And if it's just a souvenir from the trip and it ends up hanging in my craft room, that is fine as well. So that was the Hey Mama Wolf booth, and I apologize if I'm flying through, you guys. When I filmed this before, it took me an hour and a half, and I don't want to subject you to an hour and a half long video. So after that, I think we all reconvened in the marquee, which was absolutely crowded as well, and we stopped for a bit of lunch. The food line I got in was actually the wrong one, so they just were serving teas and cakes and desserts, and I really could have gone for a sandwich, but it's okay. So I got a delicious piece of carrot cake, which was absolutely enormous, and a cup of tea, and sat and chatted with my mom, my aunt, and my sister, and we all chatted about what we had picked up so far. And so that was really nice. And after that, we poked around the marquee, which is where the Toft booth was. And they had a photo booth, and then the iconic animals and their stand as well. So I'm going to include some pictures of that. So after that, we went back into the marketplace and poked around the different stalls. So the next purchase I made was at a vendor called the Border Mill. So let me grab these real quick. So her stall had intrigued me before EYF when I was looking up all the different vendors, because she has a lot of non-traditional and interesting bases that she carries, and so I wanted to check out her stand and squish her fibers, particularly this one, because it's 50% alpaca and 50% rose fiber. And so I was really intrigued by that base, because what I was reading about the rose fiber is it's supposed to be really good at moisture wicking and cooling. So for me here in Florida, I was like, gotta check that out. I'm not sure, which is probably counteracted by being blended with the alpaca, because that is incredibly warm. I can tell you that from past projects. So I ended up picking a sweater's quantity up of this, the alpaca rose, which is a fingering weight yarn. Each skein is 50 grams and roughly 175 meters. So I picked up a sweater's quantity to be able to do Nordeska by Caitlin Hunter. So the main color is this oatmeal yarn, with the two contrasting colors being this charcoal and blue, and the colorways on these are Pacific Opal for this blue yarn, Onyx, and then Palladium. So I thought this would make a really lovely Nordiska, and since we've gotten back, I've wondered if it was a mistake buying this yarn for that project, because I know with plant-based fibers they have a tendency to grow a lot, and so I've made things out of bamboo, and that just, I mean, like, eventually doubled in size. So I'm hoping the alpaca will have enough memory so that it doesn't just grow and grow and grow and become like comically large. If you have experience working with alpaca and rose blended fiber, feel free to comment down below how that worked out for you. So I don't have too many more acquisitions from day one to show you. After that, I went over to the John Urban booth and I got a couple things from him. I got 2 different colorways of spinning fiber, which I've shown in the past on the podcast. So I'm just going to pop a photo of the finished fiber on here. And then the other thing I got from him was 5 skeins of his Viola yarn, which is 100% merino wool, and it's milled by John Urban and then dyed by Viola, who I'm pretty sure is a Canadian dyer. So they're 100 grams. They are 250 meters each. And this is Nimbus Cloud is the colorway, and it's this really pretty gray that's been over dyed with like a bluey purple. So it's absolutely lovely. So oops, it's okay, I got another one right here. So I bought this to make the Mira sweater by Fiber Tales. So I got 5 skeins of this for that project. And they must not have had enough of it when I was there, because since we've gotten back and I've been on the John Urban website, he has another kind of like muddy, grungy purple, and I would have bought it in that color if I would have seen it. And so I've put it in my cart a few times that I've gone on their site, and eventually it's going to come to the house and I'm going to make something out of it. So that was the John Urban booth, and then after that I went over to Ushitida because it was actually, the day we flew out was actually my birthday, and so my mom told me as my birthday present she would buy me a skein of yarn at the festival. So I went over to the Ushitida booth and I got one of their EYF exclusive colorways. So this is the Kaylee colorway, and it is on their twist base. It's 80% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon, 100 grams, and 399 yards, or 365 meters. So once again, really pretty purple gray with these deep purple maroon, like wine colored speckles with more pops of that electric blue and green and black, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and I hope this is showing up on the camera. So yeah, that is what I did on day one. There's a few vendors who got away from me, and I'm really sad about it, and it was mainly because it was so crowded. I either gave up on trying to buy yarn there, or I was so frazzled I left without going back to their booth. So my missed connections from EYF include Eden Cottage Yarns, Beaches and Bishu, Walk, and Mulview Farms. If I could go back, and if we would have gone back Saturday, I probably would have bought a sweater quantity at all of those. So it's probably a good thing it was too crowded, because my wallet thanks me. But yeah, I went to Eden Cottage Yarns probably 4 times trying to find something there, and it was either I couldn't find a base that I liked in the color that I wanted, or like the booth was so crowded I couldn't even get over to the wall to see what the other yarns were because there was people there. And the same with Mulview, it was kind of picked over when I got there. But yeah, I wish I would have picked up, and Tuku wool is another one that I wanted to pick up and didn't get a chance to, but it's okay. In the end, you know what, I can always find those yarns most likely on D-Stash, on Ravelry, you know, or I can order them online. I did feel some of Stephen West's new yarn, the West Wool, and it just didn't really speak to me at that moment in time. I didn't really see any colors that I was drawn to. Same with La Bien-Aimé's new base with Retrosaria. So yeah, if I had another day and double the budget, I probably would have come back with a lot more from that day. So I would say about 4 o'clock we decided to head back to our flat because Zoe and I had tickets to the Ceilidh that evening, so we wanted to head back, kind of refresh ourselves, change, and then head back for the Ceilidh. So that was a really fun, once-in-a-lifetime experience. So the way the Ceilidh works is you arrive, you kind of find a table, sit wherever you want and find a table, and then so we ended up at a table way in the back, and we sat with these 3 women from France and then 2 separate groups of 2 from Germany. And we ended up just chit-chatting with the 4 German ladies primarily, and yeah, talked about knitting and traveling, where they planned on sightseeing while they were in Edinburgh. And so yeah, that was a really fun, really good time. And then after dinner ended, the music started playing and you go out on the dance floor. So yeah, we danced a couple reels while we were there. A couple were off to the side by ourselves, and then a couple were on the dance floor, and that was packed and crowded as well. I don't know if it was just the song we picked to go out or what, but it was like non-stop bumping into people, but it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of laughing, and so we left a little bit early from the Ceilidh because we knew we wanted to do some sightseeing the next day, so we wanted to head back, and we were riding the bus and we didn't want to miss the bus back to the flat as well. So yeah, we didn't go Saturday back to the festival, but we did go back on Sunday. We did have tickets to the Make Wool event, which was awesome. It exceeded every expectation that I had. We didn't get tickets to the talk. It was originally Kate Davies, and that talk got canceled for whatever reason, and then they decided to schedule the diversity inclusion talk, and we didn't have tickets to that. So the good news is they did put it online afterwards, and I've since watched it, and it was interesting to watch for sure. And so yeah, we ended up just scooting around and shopping that morning, and I was so surprised how into the more rustic yarns I was, because the day before, or Friday at the event, I had felt some of the stuff by like Little Gray Sheep and a few of the other vendors who have like non-superwash yarns or things that aren't merino, and I've always been prejudiced against BFL, and I blame an old spinning teacher for that. I was like, you don't want to wear this next to your skin. So, sorry BFL, I have misjudged you. But anyways, we got there, and there was probably, I'd say, maybe 20 to 30 vendors total for that event. So we went in and we went onto the marquee. There was one vendor who was selling pottery, and that was one of the ones Zoe wanted to hit, to be able to, I'm sorry, my neighbor is just throwing away their trash, and I caught their reflection in the window, and ooh. So anyways, we went to the pottery. She got her souvenir mug that she wanted for the trip, and then we went inside and started squishing all the delicious British Scottish yarns. So the first purchase I made was from Hawkshaw Sheep, and I got 2 skeins of this purple DK weight yarn, and so it's actually a gray fleece that's been dyed over with this color, so it's got this lovely marled effect. So So this is the Bonfire Smoke colorway. It's 100% British wool, created from Shetland and Hebridean fleece. It's woolen spun, 100 grams, 215 meters, and it's 100% produced in Scotland from the flock to scouring to the milling as well. So I picked this up to use in the Zola jacket, which is a cardigan by, I believe it's an Amba O'Brien pattern. I'll put all the information on the screen. This should be just enough for that pattern. I haven't figured out the contrasting color for it yet though, but I was so surprised at how soft this yarn is next to the skin. I have really sensitive skin and I'm really sensitive to the itch, and it's like not itchy at all. And I always hold it up to my neck because that's usually where I can feel it the most. So once I realized this yarn wasn't scratchy, I went a little ham. Not really. Kept it in for the most part. So I got 2 skeins from Hawkshaw Sheep, and then we kind of milled over. Now Zoe and I were standing off to the side, just checking everything out, when one of the ladies working at the vendors, she walked over to us, and I think she was asking one of us about our sweaters. So we were chit-chatting with her, and then we asked her about her sweater, and it turned out she was at the booth that we wanted to hit anyways, which was Croft 29. It was one that we had said before the festival that we wanted to hit, because in the lead up to planning the trip, we had really wanted to make it out to the Isle of Skye, and that trip got nixed just for logistical reasons. It wasn't going to work out, and so we made a pact that if we couldn't go to the Isle of Skye, we were going to come back with yarn from the Isle of Skye. So we ended up going to Croft 29, which is genuine Hebridean yarn from the Isle of Skye. Each one of these barrels is 100 grams. It's DK weight, 187 meters or 204 yards. And so I only have the 2 now because I have 6 skeins in total. I actually bought 4 at the festival, and then Zoe and I each decided we needed more for the project we had picked out for them. So it's this beautiful chocolate brown color, and in the lighting at the festival I thought it was black, but when you see it in natural light, it's this really gorgeous dark brown, chocolate almost black, with little bits of kind of white or gray fleece coming through, so it has a little bit of a heathered look. So I have 6 skeins of this, and I'm going to do the stalactite sweater out of this, which was in a previous pom-pom. So that is the plan for this, and like I said, I have six balls. So after we did our damage at that booth, we walked around, went to the Isolde booth, and that's where I found the 2 purple skeins of Calypso that I picked up, that I'm using in a wedding shawl for my friend, and so I've already started knitting with that yarn, so I'm not going to show it on. I'll put a picture up of the 2 skeins on here. So picked up there, and then we kind of went into the wool research station area, which was really neat, and they had someone there selling like tartan fabrics, and I wish I would have bought some of that there, but it's all good. So the last thing that I picked up at the festival was from a vendor called South Downs Yarn, and I picked up this really pretty kind of murky blue-green, and this is from, the flock is called Duncton. They have the shepherd here, and these are, they're both around 84 meters or 92 yards. They're 30 gram skeins in the Dupont colorway, and they're dyed, these are naturally dyed as well, with oak, gallust, and or oak galls and indigo. So I got these two to make either some house slippers out of, or I don't think those would work together. I don't know. I liked them. I picked them out. I grabbed 2 skeins for my mom as well. And then we grabbed 2 of these little mini skeins from them as well. So these are little 10 grams minis that are undyed. So yeah, that was from the Make Wool event, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, those are my EYF purchases. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that, hearing about them. Overall, just my thoughts on the festival. I thought it was a great event. I think the organizers do a fabulous job, and I think it's great that it's kind of becoming an international destination as well. But due to that, it could be very crowded. And I don't think people were like fighting over yarn, but you just like, sometimes it can be a little frustrating trying to get into a booth or to see something. And so that would be the only downside or critique. I do know they're taking next year off, and I have a feeling it's either, or a combination, either to find a new larger venue, and then also with everything with Brexit being up in the air, I'm sure they're having to figure that out as well. So yeah, EYF in the books, mark it off the bucket list, check. So after the event, we had, about 6 or 7 days in the city that we had planned for our trip. So the day in between the festival, as I mentioned, my mom and my aunt, they went on an overnight trip up into the Highlands, and so Zoe and I decided that Friday, Saturday, whatever day it was, we were going to hit all of the Harry Potter sites in the city. So that morning we left, and we walked like 10 or 11 miles that day, but we walked over to Newtown to try and get breakfast at a little cafe that ended up being too small to even get a table. So we ended up in another little coffee shop where we got breakfast, and next to it actually was a marshmallow shop, so we picked up some marshmallows there, and then kind of headed back towards we headed back towards the Royal Mile, where we wanted to hit Victoria Street, which is the inspiration for Diagon Alley. But along the way, we kept hitting antique shops, so we were popping into antique shops, checking those out. We came across what's the name of the road? I can't think of it, but it's the really famous road in Newtown. So yeah, we made it to the top of the Royal Mile, walked past Edinburgh Castle, and then we went down to, Victoria Street. We went to Victoria Street and checked out the Harry Potter stuff there, grabbed lunch, went into Armstrong's, which is a vintage clothing store there, and checked it out. And then we found Greyfriar's Bobby. And we stopped and had tea at this fantastic bakery cafe, where I got this elderflower cake. It was delicious, you guys. First off, the food there was incredible. I didn't have a bad meal at all. So yeah, we stopped and had a bit of tea. Found Greyfriar's Kirkyard, which was the inspiration for a lot of the names in the books. So we found McGonagall's grave, and Tom Riddle's grave, and Moody, and there were a few others, and it was just an absolutely gorgeous cemetery in general. A lot of really interesting iconography on the headstones and symbolism. So we were nerding out in there just over the architecture in general. And there's some really pretty views within the cemetery of like the castle and stuff. So then we headed back down the Royal Mile. I don't think we stopped in too many tourist shops. I mean, for me, the trip, the yarn was like most of my souvenirs in general, aside from coming back with like a bottle of whiskey for my husband. So didn't go into too many of those. And then we also, posed with some of the kitschy Scottish statues, and a portion of Outlander in season 2, Jamie's print shop was filmed there, so we went and found the filming location for that. And so we went back to the flat and relaxed, and then we decided to go back out that evening and climb to the top of Calton Hill for sunset. So we went and watched the sunset up there, and Calton Hill's gorgeous. It has all these different monuments around town, not around town, at the top of the hill, and like a planetarium. And so we took some photos up there of sunset, and then went back and relaxed in the flat that evening. So yeah, and I think I don't remember what we did for dinner. So then the next day was Maple. So then my aunt and my mom came back, and so we got the hop on, hop off bus pass, so that rides like on a set of determined stops around town and gives some of the information. And then it also includes tickets to Edinburgh Castle, Holyrood Palace, and the Royal Yacht Britannia. And so we decided to do that over the course of the next 2 days. So we started at Edinburgh Castle because we wanted to get there before the crowds, and toured the castle, which was absolutely gorgeous. It was really cool. A portion of the crown jewels are there, but you're not allowed to take pictures inside that space. So learning some of that history, as well as once again getting some really pretty views around town. And then after we toured the castle, we got lunch at a little pub right off the Royal Mile, which was delicious. And then we made our way down to Holyrood, which I absolutely loved. It was that and the Yacht are up there on my list of places that we went. And Holyrood was tough because when we got there, it was for the last tour of the day. And so we kind of had to not run through it, but we didn't linger either. It was like, okay, you have to listen and then move to the next room, listen, move to the next room. But Holyrood was gorgeous, really neat. There was one spot where we turned a corner and we went into the throne room, and I think my jaw dropped because I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. And then right outside of Holyrood, or right next to it, is the ruins of an old abbey. So that was really neat. And yeah, so that was that day. And then that was kind of and then so we went back to the flat and made some dinner. And then the next day we went to the Royal Yacht Britannia, which previously was the Queen and her family's personal yacht, and then it was decommissioned in the 90s, and then turned into a museum. And that was probably my favorite out of the 3 with that ticket pass, which you wouldn't think the yacht would be the coolest one, but it was so much more intimate than the others, and so you really got a feel for how the royals live their lives. And it was just the audio tour is really well done. The staff working the tour was great. And so there was one part where we were in like the dining room, where they do like state dinners and stuff, and they're talking about all the people who have been entertained, dignitaries and guests and all that stuff. And I got chills listening to it, just thinking like I'm standing in the same spot potentially as Nelson Mandela, or Princess Diana, or the Clintons, or those are just the ones I remember off the top of my head. So the yacht was amazing. It was great. And then you go down to the very lower levels and you see like the crew's quarters and the engine room and all of that stuff. And then at the very end they had a little exhibit on the history of sailing, which I took a ton of pictures of for work because I'm working on a sailing exhibit right now. So I was like, let me get some inspiration from this. So that was the Royal Yacht. After we finished that, we decided to split up. So my mom and I went to the Royal Botanical Gardens, and my mom and my sister and my aunt decided they wanted to go back to the flat for a little bit of a rest. So we went to the Botanical Gardens, which is free, and that's just a little north of Edinburgh proper. And so we wandered around. They had a beautiful Asian garden and the Queen's Garden, and so yeah, we just kind of kicked it around, enjoyed all the plants, took some pretty pictures, and yeah, that was really nice. So we headed back to the flat, and then that evening we went to a really good Indian restaurant. Should you ever find yourself in Edinburgh, go to Dishoom. It is fantastic. It's up there in like one of the best meals I've ever had of my life. And then the next day after that, and I'm sorry if I'm flying through this, I know this is going to be long enough as it is, we went to, we had a tour planned for, I guess, an excursion out of the city, and we went to the Kelpies, Loch Lommond, and Stirling Castle. So the Kelpies are these really cool statues that are part of a lock system, and when I say lock, I mean like lock and keys, as part of like a damming project for water versus like the Scottish term for lake. So it's a lock as part of a canal, and built on top of these locks are these two gigantic horses, which are inspired by the story of the Kelpies, which are these mythical water horses who lure you into the lake lock. Not confusing at all, right? Who lure young women and take them for their brides underneath the water, and then they lure young men and eat them. And so that's the Kelpies. And then we went to Loch Lommond, where we stopped, and they dropped you off at one portion of the loch, and you could hike back to another portion of town. So that was gorgeous. It was a little overcast and gloomy, but you know, we were getting the full Scottish weather experience that day, and the hike was not bad at all. It was absolutely gorgeous, and just stunning views the whole way around. And then after that, we got lunch at a lovely little pub, followed by our trip over to Stirling Castle, which I have to say was another one of my favorite sites that we visited. It's just, well, architecturally, one, it was really interesting, because unlike Edinburgh Castle, Stirling Castle, a lot of the original castle was intact, so you could see the mishmash of the architectural styles, you know, just juxtapositioned against each other. So you could see like an early 13th, 15th century building was right next to a Renaissance style structure, which was next to a more modern, you know, 17th or 18th structure. So that was really cool, number one. That it was just so impressive, and the tour guide there was amazing, and the way they had their interpretation divided up was really neat, because there was like spaces where you could just go and gawk and look, and then other rooms they had filled with like traditional house museum exhibits. So they had it set up like the bedrooms during a particular time period, and then they had spaces that were more used as exhibit halls. There was a really cool exhibit on the history of these medallions that were in the ceiling and what they did to conserve and replicate them. And then another portion of the castle, they had an exhibit on restoring a tapestry and all the conservation work that went into that. And so yeah, it was phenomenal. It was one of my favorite sites. I'm so glad we went there. And then after that, we didn't have much time left in town. We spent the next day, I believe, we split up again, and my mom and my aunt wanted to go along the Royal Mile because they hadn't really had a chance to do that yet. And so Zoe and I chose to go to the National Art Museum, which was great. I saw my first Da Vinci there, and it involved a drop spindle, so winning National Gallery. And that museum is kind of like the perfect size museum. Like, it takes about I would say probably 2 to 2.5 hours to walk through it and see everything and not feel overwhelmed and feel like you still absorbed a lot. So that was great. And then after that, we headed over to the National Portrait Gallery, and I loved the way they did their interpretation at the National Portrait Gallery. They used portraits and people to tell this story of Scotland, which you're like, well, duh, that's portraits, that's what they have to do. But it was just so masterfully done and so masterfully woven together, the narrative, because like the whole trip we've been hearing these names like, you know, Queen Margaret and Bruce the Conqueror and Bonnie Prince Charlie and Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth II and any other name you want to throw in there, and to be able to actually see the face, put the names to the faces, number one, and then kind of chronologically line everyone up. It was really well done, and they had everything from giant portraits to miniatures to coins. It was a really well done exhibit, and it really went into some of the espionage and intrigue and things along those lines that took place. So if you had to choose between the two museums, I would almost recommend the Portrait Gallery over the National Museum of Art. And then I think after that we reconvened with my aunt and my mom on the Royal Mile. We met at the National Library, which is just off the Royal Mile, and should you ever need a public restroom that is clean and free off the Royal Mile, go to the National Library. So after that we grabbed some tea and lunch and some desserts at a little bakery, and then my sister and my aunt headed back to the flat. They wanted to start packing, and my mom and I kicked down the Royal Mile, where we popped into the Museum of Edinburgh, which was really nice, and I could really relate to that museum because you could tell it was a much smaller, much more focused museum that didn't have as many resources, say, as the National Gallery or the Castle, but still a really well done museum. I took a ton of photos in there and read a lot of the interpretation, and really got to know the history of the city, and it was right next to the Museum of Childhood, which we didn't have enough time to go in there, but I wish we would have, because it's a museum I read about when I was in graduate school, And when they opened, it was groundbreaking at the time because it's a museum dedicated to the history and concept of childhood. So not childhood in Scotland, but childhood in general. And at the time, that was kind of revolutionary when they opened. So I wish I would have had a chance to go in there and check it out, but they were closing by the time we hit that portion of the mile. And yeah, I'm trying to think, we hit the World's End, stopped and took a photo there. And so that was our last day, but somewhere in there was another day where we wanted to go to Ginger Twist Studio, which was like a 2-second walk from our flat. But we walked over there and they were closed, and so our plan for the day was to hit Ginger Twist and then hike Arthur's Seat, which is the highest point in town. So since Ginger Twist was closed, we ended up going to Be Inspired, which was another yarn shop in town. So we caught an Uber over there, and so bought a little more yarn, but not too much while we were there. So one of the things I picked up there was this Cosmic Strings, which is a local dyer in Edinburgh, and this is their 2019 EYF exclusive colorway. So this is fingering weight yarn, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 425 meters or 465 yards. And as I said, it's hand dyed in Edinburgh, and it's their EYF 2019 exclusive colorway. So it's kind of a creamy base with speckles of black and brown and purple and blue and yellow and greens. So it's just beautiful. This was the last skein of this that she brought back, so I kind of scooped it and held it against me in the shop. And then I didn't find all the mohair I wanted at the festival because I want to make the No Frills cardigan by Petite Knits. And I have the fingering weight yarn here. I have some like yellow black elephant that I want to use with it, but it's kind of baby colors, so I was thinking I wanted to find like a white or maybe a cream colored mohair to hold with it, which should tone down the baby of that yarn. So I grabbed 3 skeins of this Orkney or Angora. So it is 70% Angora, 30% wool, 50 grams per ball, and approximately 400 meters. So I got 3 skeins of this for that project, which should be enough to hold it double with the fingering weight that I have in just an undyed white color. So I grabbed this, and then I also grabbed 1 skein of Retrosaria Mondum, which I have already knit a pair of socks out of, and I gifted the leftovers to my sister for her to make a pair of socks out of as well. So yeah, and I cast on those socks the day I cast them on at the airport as we were leaving, and pretty much knit most of the sock on the flight back. So yeah, so that was Cosmic Strings, and then that afternoon we went and hiked Arthur's Seat, which, as I mentioned before, it's the highest point in town, so you get these lovely 360-degree views around town. And I mean, it was a little bit challenging, I'm not gonna lie, to get to the top, but we just stopped and took lots of breaks. And off one portion of the trail, there's ruins from an old, like, 13th century chapel. So we went over there to those. So yeah, my sister, my mom, and myself, we all hiked to the top. My aunt decided she wasn't up for it, and she kind of walked around Holyrood Park, because that's where the trailhead is at the bottom of Holyrood Park. So we hiked, took pictures, came back down, and then this was serendipity. We went to go to a fish and chip shop to go get dinner, And our Uber driver was like, are you sure you guys want to get fish and chips there? That place isn't very good. And we were like, well, someone recommended it to us. I said, okay, well, I'll drive you there, and then you can tell me if that's where you want to go. So we drove there, and we pulled up, and we're like, yeah, no, this doesn't look very good. So we happened to be really close to Portobello Beach. So he went ahead and dropped us off at the boardwalk at Portobello Beach, which is kind of the locals' beach there. So we walked along the beach, dipped our toes in the Aegean Sea, and then as we walked back, we found a really good restaurant where we finally got fish and chips for the trip, and then headed back for the evening to the house. So yeah, that was kind of my trip in a rough nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about it. If you ever have the chance to go to Edinburgh, I highly recommend it. If you have the chance to go to EYF, I can't recommend it enough as a festival. And so, yeah, thank you guys for joining in today. I so appreciate it. If you like today's podcast and previous podcasts, please feel free to hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And yeah, thank you so much, and have a great day.